Meeting of the City of Oak Creek, October 15th, 2024, to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkowski is excused. Alderman Lorik is excused. Alderman Ritz.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Gale.
Here.
Guzekowski.
Here. Everybody, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Matt, would you start us off, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That'll get us to the approval of the minutes from October 1st, 2024. I'll give everybody a few moments to look them over. If there's any corrections, errors, omissions, or discussion, please take the floor. If there's no discussion, motion?
Ritz motions to approve the minutes of 10/1/24.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Ritz.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Item 4 is consideration of a resolution approving an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 66.0301 between the City of Oak Creek and the City of South Milwaukee for police, ambulance, and fire-related dispatch services. Max?
Max Gagan, Deputy City Administrator and Finance Officer. So before you tonight is Resolution 12524-101524, which would approve an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of South Milwaukee for dispatch services. So as the Common Council recalls, last December we entered into a 10-year partnership with the City of South Milwaukee to start providing dispatch services. And those services were to commence on January 1st of 2025. So staff has been working pretty diligently over this past year, implementing so that the dispatch center can serve the City of South Milwaukee. And as we've progressed through that implementation, things have gone very well. In working with the vendors, they asked that we try to avoid doing a turnover at the end of the year. Certainly the vendors, AT&T and Phoenix, they have other year-end obligations. So with that and based off of how things were progressing, we set a new date to commence services, which is December 3rd, 2025. So we're essentially starting, or 2024, sorry. So essentially we're starting a year early, or a month earlier than we thought. And this amendment is just codifying the new commencement date, and it does also include a one-time payment of $70,000 to serve them for that additional month before 2025. So with that, happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll open the floor for questions, comments to Max. Nothing. Great example of intergovernmental cooperation and partnership. It's going to serve the citizens of South Milwaukee well as the citizens of Oak Creek and St. Francis for that shared cost. So, no further discussion. Motion, please.
I will move to approve Resolution 12524-101524, approving the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 66.0301 between the City of Oak Creek and the City of South Milwaukee for police, ambulance, and fire-related dispatch services.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
And item 5 is consideration of a motion to enter into a 5-year agreement from 2025 to 2029 with GFL Environmental Services for solid waste and recycling collection services for a combined bid of $7,362,003. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Matt Trebetuski, Director of Public Works. This is the final year of the current 3-year agreement with GFL, who has been servicing the community for the last several years. This past agreement was a 3-year agreement that had 3% increases both in 2023 and 2024. So the city solicited bids for the service, looking for both either a 3-year or a 5-year term contract. We did receive 3 bids back with GFL, the current service provider. We also received bids from LSR, LRS and Waste Management. And it was pretty evident, just looking at the numbers, GFL came in extremely lower than the others, even with the 5-year overall contract, really being even in the 5th year of a 5-year agreement, a lower overall annual cost of the other two providers, if they were to service our community in 2025. So from a economical or financial perspective, they're the logical choice. Additionally, just being the current service provider, there's really not going to be much of a learning curve. We shouldn't see a disruption of services for the residents, so it should be good in that respect. Also going out for bid was advantageous in the fact that just in the beginning year, we came in around $30,000 less than the price that we had received from GFL if we were just looking to extend it another year or two. So that was good. The big increase, unfortunately, was in the recycling portion of the contract. That's up about 40% just due to that market and industry right now. The solid waste side of things was really only up just over 1%, 1.3%, I believe. But overall, still, generally speaking, a really good value for the residents. It's going to be in 2025, $147 per household, and that's for 12 months your weekly collection for refuse and biweekly for recycling services. And then we are looking at recommending the 5-year option. They do have 3% increases in years 2, 3, and 5. Year 4, they were showing no increase for that respective year. So the recommendation would be to go with a 5-year agreement with GFL. You can see the first year being $1,403,750.
Wonderful. Questions from Matt? Comments?
Matt, what's your guess as to why the discrepancy was?
I was a little shocked it was as large as it was. I think just being the current provider and knowing what the level of service entails gave GFL an advantage to know how long it takes and the amount of trucks, the people that they were going to need. I know the others were curious if maybe they left out the additional services that we provide because they also pick up from our city facilities, City Hall, Police Station, Fire Stations, Public Works. They pick up our dumpsters at the recycling yard. So I know one of the other bidders had questioned about that, but confirming GFL being the current provider knew that those were included within their bid. So just maybe the overall capital outlay cost potentially with the other two.
Were the other two close?
Those two are pretty close. Yeah. Yeah, they were both around. Well, one was 1,862, and the other was 1,938. But yeah, still quite 450,000 more.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, nice job, Matt.
Yep.
Very good. So with that, with no further discussion, motion then.
So move to enter into a 5-year agreement with GFL Environmental Services for solid waste and recycling collection services for a combined bid amount of $7,362,003.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye.
And item 6 is under engineering. It is consideration of a resolution authorizing recommended road improvement projects be advertised for public bid for rehabilitation in 2025. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Matt Sullivan, Assistant City Administrator and City Engineer. So before you is that resolution for road improvements. We do this annually. Kind of wanted to do something a little different here, out of my norm, I guess, to say. So I'm going to give a little bit of a presentation on background of what we do as far as our road ratings, how we do that, maybe some pictures, and then kind of break it down on the preventative maintenance that we do, why we do it, and then get into the actual road selections that Bob Waka reviewed and recommended for approval. So our pavement rating system is the PASER rating from 1 to 10, 1 being poor, 10 being excellent. So this is kind of an example of what we use. We go out there, you have concrete on the right and asphalt on the left. It's a little difficult to read, but this is kind of the visible distresses and things that we look at along with pictures of side of these as we're driving the roads and reviewing them. So it kind of gives you an idea of the extent that we go through. And generally, when you're looking at each segment, you look at the full segment, not just spot. So some area might be bad, the overall road is, you know, a certain level. So that's how it gets rated. It's not rated on just certain sections, it's the entire road. So here's some of the pictures. We talk about overlays, rehabilitation, and surface treatments. So our surface candidates are generally a 6 or a 7. So they typically will look the pictures on your left hand of your screen, which are large cracks, some raveling, which is kind of the loss of asphalt cement within that. So you'll see a little bit of the stone, and then more traverse cracks about 10 feet apart. Pretty easy to pick up, pretty easy to look at and go through, but generally speaking, there is no structural deficiencies within that pavement. It's just starting to fail on the surface, so you tend to protect it through any kind of surface treatment like we've been doing the past 4 or 5 years. The overlay candidates are generally your 4s and 5s. Typically, you'll start seeing more failures, some structural deficiencies, things along those lines that require an overlay or a mill, some sort like that. So that's kind of how we go about our system as we're moving forward through things. So a little bit of historical PASER ratings just to give you a snapshot of time. So we have on the left your year, and then our ratings one, we kind of clumped them together a little bit, but as you go through them, you can see through our funding, through 2005 to 2012, it varied. It was anywhere from $500,000 to $825,000 that we were funded annually. So you'll see in 2005, on average, we were about a 7.3, which is actually really good. I mean, that's where you kind of want to be. Between a 6 and a 7 is probably where we're shooting for. And as you can see, as our funding decreased to the $660,000 annually, where we were doing projects every other year, you can gradually see how that average PASER rating dropped to 6.5 all the way down to 5.9. And right around that time in 2023, that's where we injected up to $1 million. We're paid off that bond. We were able to put in more money there and kind of see that little jump. So as we're going through that process of the $660,000, that's when we started doing more of our surface treatments. Kind of got away from what we used to do, where it was a full reconstruction and things. We started trying to spend the money in a more appropriate fashion to basically move our PASER ratings around. And we really started to seeing those gains after a couple years of doing that. So that's kind of why we do it. Here's a pavement deterioration curve if anybody is curious. So over time, you can see in the first, it's 75% of the life, which is 15 years, it really kind of sits in that fair to good range. And then there's just a drastic change with pavement. It fails out really quick, or you can do your maintenance and that and move it up. But so as ours, if you look at it, you kind of see where we're sitting right now in 2023, 2024 area. Majority of our roads sitting right between that fair and poor quality. So we're trying to get ahead of it, but a little bit of struggle here. I wouldn't say we're in horrible shape, but we're getting to that point where we're going to be behind the 8 ball, more or less, and figure out how to do that and move forward with life, getting our pavement structures back into an acceptable manner.
Matt, does that include both asphalt and concrete?
Yeah, so that's just a general look. So they both kind of react the same way. The life expectancies are a little different. Asphalt is generally a little earlier than
Concrete is
concrete tends to go a lot longer.
longer,
Yes. So your deterioration in asphalt is much quicker. But there's a big price difference. So usually you want to do a cost benefit analysis right off the bat. If it's within 5%, typically we go concrete, but we have not seen that. So here's some of the preservation strategies that we talk about with our surface seals. Really, our goal has been right about the 15-year mark, where we're kind of starting to implement our surface treatments, and that's simply because of the funding mechanisms that we have in place right now. But you can see here in the green, if you do preservation strategies the proper way, you can really extend your life for a lot longer with less dollars. Once again, for the National Center for Pavement Preservation, this is a great slide. So if you do the right preservation, you spend $1 pavement restoration per se. And if you want to not do your preservations, you will end up spending $6 to $14 a few years later. So I guess the point is, either we do a preservation management like we've been starting to, and get a lot more done, or you delay it. Right now what we're finding is without the proper funding, you're kind of starting to fall more roads into that delayed part where we're not getting to it in time. So we'll kind of, any questions, I guess, at that point? I know I'm going through this kind of quick, but I just kind of want to give you a high profile of how we get to where we're at. Okay. So this is a little more difficult to read. I think you have it in your packet. But this is all of our options that we put together for the road improvements that we presented to Vapwaka on the 8th of October. Option A is typically what we do, which is our primary roads. Kind of grab a couple here and there, local. So option A, you can kind of see my cursor. It's a little typical here, but there's one up in the northeast part of the city, Crane. That was actually brought forward by Alderman Kirkowski. And it does meet a lot of our criteria for doing a local road as far as rehabilitation. That is a concrete road and it's rated a 5 at this point. We'll be looking to do pavement overlay, concrete or asphalt overlay on that, similar to what we've done on a few of our roads and have had actually really good success lately with it. And it also includes, you can see option A and B. There's a couple other ones. So it also would include Oakwood down on the bottom here, which would be more of a surface treatment. A little section of Oakwood through here, which would be mill and overlay due to the structure on that. View up here would be surface treatments. Another surface treatment down in this area. So this kind of just gives you an overview. It's a lot of things within that legend to follow, but it gives you a look at it. So these are more in line of what we're talking about. So option A was presented. Like I said, is our typical way we do it. Trying to get more of our high volume roads, section line roads, a few locals. And then we were asked to look at subdivision roads more, kind of dive into that and see what we could do as far as within our dollars. So we actually came up with 2 options. Option B is more in the Fairfield subdivision. That would cover the entirety of that. And option C is in South Hills subdivision. One would be, I think both of these were brought forward by alder people. One was brought forward by Alderman Gale, and the other one was brought forward by Alderman Guzikowski. These 2 options, through complaints, kind of drove our review and seeing what we could come up with options. But so those were the 3 main options that were brought forward in front of Vapwaka. There's a lot of discussion in regards to, do we do subdivisions now and hold off on our mainline roads, or do we, when we get an infusion of additional money, being an additional $1 million, as we've discussed in a lot of our budget workshops in the future, do we move into an option B with an option A, kind of 2 together, and really kind of make a lot of hay at that point? Focus on a subdivision, still focus on our main objective also, which is capturing as many people as we can. It came down to a lot of discussion through that. They did recommend an approval on option A. Stated on here on the 8th. To note also, the railroad crossings are included. We already have funding for that set aside. So those will also be included in either option we do. I think that's the alternatives are there. Those can be interjected as needed by council. Vapwaka at the time did not see fit to do that. Happy to answer any questions or go with any further discussion.
Questions? Well, I guess I'll just say a comment. You know, I appreciate the presentation. I talked to, probably like most of you, a lot of phone calls regarding road issues, potholes, things like that. I always try to describe the grading system we have. And, it's nice to have the visual picture of what a 6 looks like versus what I imagine a 6 looks like talking to the residents. So do appreciate that. Do think it's a good system. It's proven out. We've gotten extra years out of our roads, and we've made a lot happen with little money. Unfortunately, that time's running out.
Well, we have a good staff. They stay on top of it. They're coming up with new ways all the time.
Anybody else?
I think option A looks,
Sure.
That doesn't sound like an exact science by any means, but let's call it conservatively $3 or $4. That's 3 or 4 times the cost. So if we can make those investments that we talked about at our budget workshop, we think we can make a really big impact. And with those type of statistics, the cost benefit analysis is pretty easy to figure out. So we will bring that plan back, kind of continuing off of our budget workshop discussions and the need to really have a more robust capital improvement budget for our community and our community's needs. We will bring that plan. We are hitting that. You can see bits and pieces of it coming together with this presentation tonight. So I just wanted to thank Matt for putting it together really concise overview of a lot of data and a lot of work that the staff does.
Is that something you'd consider, or I don't know if we want to put it on the website, but for residents to look at, so they have something to refer to if they're looking for questions about it?
I think that's a good thing to do. I think I don't want to refine it a little bit so it's a little more in layman's terms.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely we can kind of put something together where it would probably assist you more when you get questions to point to. Yeah, I'll
I'd
start
find
working
it
with Andrew.
helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be too, and I don't want to discount anything on that, but we want to make sure that it's understandable at their terms.
Yep.
But, so yeah, it would take us a little bit, but we definitely do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on 6? Ken?
And just to comment on, you saw with Matt's, especially the options after some of the there are multiple neighborhoods in the city that need to be addressed. They're built at the same time, and you see the dollar amounts that are indicated to fix one subdivision. Right now, capital budget. So that really strikes at the heart of the fact. Keep up with their infrastructure. Editorializing, but that's just the way it is.
I think a point to that, option A and option B are asphalt. We have a significant amount of subdivisions that were built in the early 80s that are all concrete without any underlayment of stone. Those will be required probably to be fully reconstructed. So $1 million here on asphalt will probably be close to $2 million on concrete road subdivision. So we have to keep all that in mind, and those are things that we'll bring more towards as we dive into it a little bit more. But yeah, we have to keep that in the back of our mind too. So we're going to try to find ways to take care of those, put the Band-Aid solution on some of those subdivision roads to spread it out. That's much bigger discussions.
Because we got to be able to give the people, especially in the residential areas, griping about the condition of the roads, we got to give them sunlight at the end of the line that they're going to get fixed at some point. You got to be serious.
Absolutely. We don't want to discount what they give to the city, so we have to find ways to improve their life too.
Other discussion, comments? Motion.
Marshall will move to approve resolution 12523-101524, authorizing recommended road improvement projects to be advertised for public bid for rehabilitation in 2025.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
aye,
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
And item 7 is consideration of a motion to enter into a contract for grant writing services between the City of Oak Creek and MSA Professional Services, Inc. Once again.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, before you is that motion to enter into contract with grant writing services. This has been one of those discussions that we've had with our SAP for several years. I think we kind of, Andrews brought that more towards the forefront in trying to find funding mechanisms and ways to find those dollars to start achieving a lot of our SAP initiatives, which would include, lakefront, environmental, parks, rec, health, fire, police, water, sewer. I mean, there's a number of big initiatives that we have within the city. Unfortunately, staff really doesn't have a lot of these expertise to write some of these major grants. So we went out for RFP for proposals on grant writing services. We received 13 from all over the country. This was not, just local. We were receiving them from Texas, Georgia. I mean, it was pretty significant. A lot of them, this is all they do. So through the process, we wanted to look at each one, give the attention to it, but we wanted to understand their approach, not only to grant writing, but also to cost on how they would do each proposal or each grant, and then also any kind of qualifications or track records that they have in the past and their knowledge of different grants. It was a little more difficult than what we expected. We came down with 4 consultants that we thought were the best. And going through it, it was pretty clear, our recommendation here with MSA, we had 3 people review them. They were reviewed, one first, ranked one by another, and ranked 2 by the third. So they were the only consultant that had that high of a mark. They were pretty clear for us as far as not only their expertise and their approach and their track record, which was very good, but also their pricing approach. They were pretty clear in the fact that they gave us a dollar amount to do our initial review, to understand what our needs were, what grants were out there for those needs, to try to match them up, and then also to what they typically would see as far as an ongoing cost a month once the grant's either received or researching new grants to see how that would work. Those dollars are presented within the right here. I believe it was a little over 5,000 for the initial, then about 1,300, and that was on a $135 an hour cost, which was pretty typical from what we could see within each and every proposal that we received. In fact, I think 135 was probably a little on the low end. Typically, we see about 150. So I'd happy to answer any questions if you have them in regards to MSA and what they bring to the table, or where you see us going with this initially and moving forward.
Questions for Matt? No, I think this is a much needed service. Just our staff does a wonderful job. But with all the available infrastructure grants out there, we really need to make a move at them. Other municipalities are as well. They're being rewarded for going after them. So it's time we take a serious look at it.
Andrew, do we keep track of overall amount of grants we're receiving in all phases? Types?
I guess I could answer that. I mean,
We do annually. Yeah, so for the past few years, we've had to complete single audits, which are audits of any federal and state grant awards. So the single audit's only triggered if you have $750,000 worth of federal grants in one cluster, cluster being like Health and Human Services, Treasury. So because we've had many federal and state grants related to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had single audits. So we do have a lot of that tracked. There are some things that aren't covered in a single audit from a state grant perspective. So things that are purely reimbursement based, like Safe Routes to Schools, you won't see that in there. But Most of our grants are federal based, and then the single audit also does not show any local grants, so things like Steve, Green Solutions, things of that nature. But certainly we can pull that information together. I can tell you that outside of what we received with the American Rescue Plan Act, which was significant, that was $3.9 million. Then the health department, we don't have many other federal grants outside of that here and there for a road project, but nothing significant for buildings.
I guess my point was that if the public saw those figures,
Worth noting, this isn't something new that we're doing, writing grants. I mean, over the last decade, maybe not federal grants, but the health department gets significant grants on an annual and ongoing basis usually. Our MMSD Green Solutions grant, we have overturned a lot of stones and brought in millions and millions to help offset kind of our taxpayer burden here. It's just so many new programs and so much more dollars. It's really a maze to figure out where to go with all of the new. So I think we have a pretty good routine done on the things that we do to help offset that, but this is kind of navigating the new.
Yeah, Alderman Ritz, I think we kind of envision this with our typical grants that we write for, which are local bridges or STP. We'll probably keep that at a staff level because we just have much more knowledge on our local small things. But I think when we're starting to look at our real big picture, like trying to find money for the firehouse, where there's dollars under the Bill Act and different things like that just continually change, and there's more infused into the economic part. We don't see that on every day. So I think these people will just provide us that knowledge and those expertise on where we actually line up really well too on going after these grants. I don't think our intention is not to go after every grant. Our intention is to go after grants that we have a good chance of getting. And I think hopefully that this is where MSA provide those services on this is the best grant to go after.
Any further discussion? Not, motion?
I'll move to enter into the contract for grant writing services between the City of Oak Creek and MSA Professional Services, Inc.
Guzekowski will second.
Who's second? I'm sorry.
Guzekowski.
Okay, I apologize.
Roll call?
Alderman Ritz?
Aye.
Marshall? Aye. Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Next is the license committee, and normally we turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski, but Alderman Ritz?
Sure.
You're up.
Included is the recommendations for, in here? Oh, there it is. Included is recommendation for licensing applications. Please take a look at it and let us know if you have any questions. There are none. Motion. Ritz will motion to approve the various license requests based as listed on 10.
Marshall will second.
Roll call?
Alderwoman Marshall? Aye. Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Ritz?
Aye.
And item 9 is the vendor summary report to be approved for consideration for approval October 9th, 2024 in the amount of $2,492,998.68. You all have the report, and if there are questions, please take the floor. No further questions or discussion. Motion, please.
Marshall will move to approve the October 9th, 2024 vendor summary report in the amount of $2,492,900, $2,492,998.60.
Gale seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
And item 10 is consideration of a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, to discuss the following. Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, to consider tax incremental district number 13 finance development agreement with F Street OCLV, MF2 LLC, and F Street OCLV, MF3 LLC. Short comments. President Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. Gale moves to convene in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, to discuss the following. A, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, to consider tax incremental district number 13 finance development agreements with F Street OCLV MF2 LLC and F Street OCLV MF3 LLC.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
We will now convene into closed session and return at its conclusion. Matt, is the website up where residents can report potholes and things like? I was talking.
Alderwoman Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Okay. Before we adjourn, just one announcement. This is our weekend Fall Fest. The weather's supposed to be wonderful for a fall family celebration. So if you have the time, that is happening at Drexeltown Square, I believe 9 o'clock till 4. So a lot of things to do for the kids and adults alike. So hope to see you there. With that, motion to adjourn.
That's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Ritz.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Okay. Night, everybody. Have a great week.